Hey guys, today's class will be focusing on the low back, playing in our child's and downward facing dog. So just finding your mat and a comfortable seated position. Resting the palms down to the knees, tucking the chin. We'll soften through the eyelids and just begin to roll the shoulders down and back. Lengthen through the neck. Feeling the tailbone all the way to the crown of the head. A nice straight line. Beginning to notice the natural rhythm of the breath. Notice if it's catching on the inhales. If the heart rate is elevated, the breath is frequent, or the breath is slow. Just greeting ourselves wherever we're at today. Then beginning to control the breath. Full breath in through the nose. Swirling the breath in the back of the throat, exhaling slowly through the nose, fully and completely. Allowing the breath to become your full focus. Pulling your mind away from the external world. And the main focus becomes on the life force energy, pranayama, the breath. Finding 2 more breaths. Feeling the chest rise and expand. And the body soften on each exhale. Bowing the chin to the chest. And bringing our awareness now to the low back. Feeling the stretch from the tailbone, either sides of the spine, all the way up through the shoulder blades and into the neck. Inhale the chin up towards the ceiling, open through the heart and throat chakra. And exhale, slowly releasing chin to chest. Again, bringing awareness all the way into the low back. Noticing any parts of the body, the back side of the body that are feeling tight. Inhale, we'll roll the chin up towards the ceiling. You can press finger pads into the knees. Start to press the chest forward. Shine the heart. And as we exhale, sucking the navel to the spine as we tuck the chin to the chest. Let's also round out the back. Inhale, we'll start to roll the chin up, lead with the chest, fingertips into the knees, open through the heart space. As we exhale, the chin tucks, rounding out the low back, mid, and upper. And inhale, we'll roll forward. Last one. Broaden the collarbone, lift the gaze. And exhale, rounding the spine, tucking the chin. Inhale, we'll find the neutral seated position, making our way into our tabletop. We'll bring the toes together and the knees nice and wide, bringing the knees at least to mat width distance, and then sitting the tailbone down towards the heels. Stretching the fingertips out on the mat space. Rest the third eye to the mat. Let's find our child's pose. Allowing the breath to flow naturally in and out through the nose. And again, being aware of how the low back is feeling in this posture, the gentle stretch that our child's pose is providing us. And if at any time child's pose feels uncomfortable for you, I invite you to slide the elbows beneath the shoulders, stacking fists, and just resting the forehead to stacked fists, lightening the load on the low back. Another option would be to have a bolster on the mat space, lengthwise in front of the body, supporting the belly, chest, and forehead. Extending the arms out long, we're going to walk the fingertips over to the right side. Begin to rest the forehead down to the mat, beginning to bring length in the left side of the body, from the left pinky finger down to the elbow, shoulder, left side of the back. Two more full cycles of breath. If you'd like to stretch it a little bit further for your last breath, I encourage you to do so, bringing the fingertips further over to the right side. And then beginning to walk through center. We'll walk the hands all the way over to the left side, stretching from pinky finger on the right side to the right elbow, right shoulder, and down the right side of the back. One more breath, taking it to your fullest expression, extending through the hands, through the fingers. And then making our way back through center, beginning to pull the weight forward, finding a tabletop position, knees come under hips. And wrists just under the shoulders, pressing into all 10 finger pads as you inhale, letting the belly fall towards the mat, begin to gaze up. And as you exhale, tucking the chin, rounding tailbone, working through our cat-cow. Inhale, the belly falls, the chest opens, the gaze is up. And exhale to round the low back, mid, upper, tucking chin to chest. Inhale forward. As we exhale and fold, this time rounding through the spine, option to find fingertips really arching through the upper back. And release. Gazing over the right shoulder to the right hip. Midline. Left shoulder gazing over to the left hip. Moving from side to side. Stretching through the side body, separating the rib cage. And one more round. Bringing both of these positions or these sequences together, making full body circles, just rolling through the spine, however feels nice, side to side, forward and back. You can bend in the elbows. And if you need to release air, to release the breath through the mouth, allowing yourself to release any physical tension or any heat. And then we'll walk the hands towards the top of the mat, finding a half plank pose. Elbow creases towards the front of the mat space. Let's lower, bending at the elbows. Think about releasing chin, chest, belly, hips release, legs activate. Shine the heart, cobra pose. Pressing the shoelace side of the feet into the mat. Hold. Take the gaze down towards the mat space. Instead of stretching up, just taking it down so the spine is nice and long. And exhale, we'll release. The palms can become a pillow for the forehead, bending at the knees and windshield wiping the legs from side to side. Release that low back. Letting the legs fall towards the mat space. Let's bring these elbows just under the shoulders, finding Sphinx pose. Fingertips towards the front of the space, pressing into all 10 finger pads. And again, think about a nice long spine. So the gaze is just down to the mat space. Active through the lower body, through the legs. Two more breaths. And letting the elbows out to either side, stacking the palms and resting the forehead. Option to windshield wiper the legs here again if that felt nice for the low back. The legs extending out long. We'll bring the hands just under the fronts of the shoulders, pushing up to a tabletop position, sitting back to the heels. From here, we're going to work on proper alignment in our downward facing dog, thinking about finding length through the hamstrings, which in turn will strengthen and lengthen the muscles that run along the spine, promoting lumbar spine health. Finding our tabletop position, pressing into all 10 fingers, curl the toes behind you. And as we rise up to our downward facing dog, we'll think about bringing tailbone straight up towards the ceiling and going nice and slow. Inhale to release, lift the knees up off the mat. Tailbone straight up towards the ceiling. Still staying on the tippy toes, option to bend in the knees here, or begin to release the heels down to the mat, finding the length, the hamstrings, into the low back. We'll begin to exhale as slowly as we came in, back down to our tabletop position. Engaging the core. Keeping the toes curled behind you. Inhale, let's roll back up to down dog. Trying to find an upside down V position. The weight is not fully into the arms. We're not in a plank pose. The hips are up and back. And then the heels start to pull towards the mat. Option to bend in the knees as much as you'd like in your downward facing dog. Then think about starting to let the chest guide towards the thighs or the back of the room. Check with the neck and head. Let it hang loose, rocking it from side to side. And exhale, let's release. Knees down to the mat. We can sit back to the heels for a breath and take a moment to roll out the wrists. Wiggling the fingers, and rolling the wrists in both directions. Palms to the mat space, curling the toes behind you. Hips up and back, downward facing dog. So the feet are only about hip width distance apart. The heels are actively pulling towards the mat, feeling the length in the hamstrings, behind the knees, through the tailbone and all the way up the spine and back. The chest is bowing through towards the back of the space. The head is hanging heavy, not holding tension in the neck. We're pressing into all 10 fingers evenly. Bringing the toes together. Let's inhale the right leg up behind us. And just holding here, flexing the toes towards the mat. Three-legged downward facing dog. And exhale to release. Inhale the left leg up. And exhale to release. This time, inhaling the right leg up. We'll allow the right knee to bend, starting to open the hip to the right side. Sending the right foot off to the left side of the mat. Open through the right hip. Gentle twist for the low back. And exhale to release. And left leg up behind you. Bending in the left knee, sending the left foot off to the right side of the mat. Open through the hip. Keeping the shoulders squared. Still pressing the chest through. Big breath in. And big breath out. Once the left toes find the mat space, we'll release the knees, making our way to our sit bones, and eventually sliding down to our backs. Bringing the knees into the chest and gently rocking side to side, massaging the low back. You can cross the ankles and maybe thinking about making circles with the knees. It's going in both directions. Releasing the soles of the feet to the mat. We'll take a gentle spinal twist. Arms out to a T. Shifting the hips over to the right side. Then we'll let the knees fall to the left. Twisting through the spine, twisting through the abdomen. Keeping the head nice and flat, maybe even tucking the chin slightly, feeling the length of the spine up into the neck and the back of the head. Inhale the knees up to the ceiling, soles of the feet to the mat. Pressing into the feet, neutralize the spine. And let's take the hips slightly over to the left and soften the knees off to the right side. For this twist, we'll keep the neck right at midline. Arms out through a T. Making our way back through center. And giving two options here for our Shavasana today. Option to bring the soles of the feet together and the knees out wide. Stretching into the inner thighs. Or we can bring the legs together and just extending them out long on the mat space. Gently softening the eyelids. And finding your Ujjayi breath. When we think about the low back, we think about the base of support, where the low body meets the upper. Carrying the weight of our shoulders, holding us upright, walking through life. It is so important to take time for our low back. Just being certain that in our basic yoga poses that we have good alignment, that we're always considering the low back. Creating stability, creating strength to grow. Encouraging you to stay for 5 to 10 full cycles of breath. Thank you for joining me, and namaste.